Alrighty, episode number 19, Bet the Beach Live. It's Wednesday, August 14th, 2024, and the 2024 Summer Olympics in Paris, France have come to their inevitable conclusion. Glad you could join us tonight here on Bet the Beach Live. We're going to do a little bit of a recap of the most exciting 15 days in beach volleyball. It happens every 4 years in Paris, France, an iconic venue. Some great teams, some great, just memorable, long-lasting matches you'll remember for a long time. So we'll cover all that here tonight. And as we sit, we are about 12 hours away, 15 hours away from the beginning of the Manhattan Beach Open. Quali's starting out in the sands of the Manhattan Beach Pier, starting tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. local time. That's 11 a.m. here on the East Coast. Got the deep 32-team main draw starting first thing Friday morning. Got a loaded entry list. We got our odds to win brackets, all those picks, predictions, and all that. And as we've talked about, as we now, we've been focused on the Olympics now for 18 months, and that's just been increasing, taking more and more of our attention. And then just like that, the four USA teams get knocked out, Olympics over, and now we just turn our attention. That's why I'm wearing the AVP hat today, right back to the AVP, the domestic product, the Domestic Beach Volleyball League. And this year, it means something. If you remember back when they had the All-Star game in Major League Baseball, they decided that the winner of that was going to get home field advantage to come the World Series. This time, it means something. Well, this year the AVP, the Heritage Series events, you win a Heritage Series event and you get an automatic bid into the AVP League, which now we're only about a month away from the start of. We still don't have any more information about what that's going to look like than we did when it was announced back in January. So 7 months and literally no more further information. But we're gonna hope and pray that they can put together a great 10 weeks of volleyball in the fall when we don't usually get it. I got confidence in them. Robert Corvino, he's my guy. Got a few likes out of him on Instagram. So I know he's a Bet the Beach stan. So we're going to be pulling for the AVP League and Manhattan Beach Open. Automatic bid, and then it's points after that. You got to finish in those top 7 points. Or I guess we're taking 8 teams per gender, so you're going to get 3 automatic bids in theory if you have 3 different winners. You got a wild card, up to 2 wild cards that they can assign. And then after that, it's points. So all these teams are really fighting for a top 5 finish, top 7 finish in order to have a good chance to qualify the league via points if they don't via the automatic bid or a wild card. So we'll take a look at that. We'll take a look at the entry list and the brackets for Manhattan Beach. But let us start with the Olympics. If you've been following along on the Instagram, on the TikTok, on the socials, we appreciate you. It's at the Beach right down here. You've been keeping up with our daily recaps. So you have a pretty good idea of what happened. Sweden, the winners on the men's side. Pretty much a dusting, I would say, of Germany in that final match. We had predicted, as you see up in the brackets there, Sweden versus Norway. Germany, Niels Ehers and Clemens Wickler. Clemens Wickler, spectacular defender. Niels Ehers leading the field in blocks up until that final gold medal match. Jonathan Helvig ended up taking that crown, but Niels Ehers doing a spectacular job at the net, changing games at the net. And Germany had played Norway, I think, like 7 or 8 times in their career and had never beaten them. And then on the highest stage in a semifinal match in the 2024 Olympics, Germany exercises that demon, gets the win over Norway. Congratulations, boys. They move on to the finals, and it was no contest. I had to pick the bet in that one. I had Sweden minus 1.5. I was coming off of a Switzerland, Nina Brunner, Tanya Huberli the day before, minus 1.5 in their semi, or I guess that was their bronze medal match against Taliqua Clancy and Mariafe of Australia. So I had minus 1.5, 2 days in a row. I felt good about them both, and they both hit. 2 teams that were not to be denied on the final day of play in the 2024 Olympics. Sweden gets it done over Germany. Norway beats Qatar in the bronze medal match. So Norway takes a bronze, their second medal as a team. They took gold in Tokyo in 2020. They followed that up with the bronze in 2024. Probably a disappointing result from them. Disappointing for me in that I was really hoping Norway-Sweden, and I could get a Norway win. I had the better future on them. But Sweden gets it done. Congratulations to the Qatari boys. They were spectacular. For the USA men, we'll start there. I would say probably the finish that we expected. I think going into this, I had said for Chase Budinger and Miles Evans, a 5th or a 9th is a great result, a great tournament, the one that they should be very happy with. They end up with a 9th. They get that lucky loser match. They get the win in the lucky loser match, so they're into the round of 16. Congratulations, boys, there. Then they draw Norway, the number 2 seed overall, in that the round of 16 match. They never had a chance against Norway. Few teams do in that spot. Chase Budinger and Miles Evans certainly did not have a chance in that. They lose that in straight sets. They head home with the 9th, but a very respectable 9th after a very respectable quad for those boys. And I think making the Olympics and then making the single elimination round of 16, pulling that 9th, a great result for Chase Budinger and Miles Evans. Congratulations, boys. I think they are your 5th seed coming into the Manhattan Beach Open here starting on Friday morning, but we'll get to those odds in a minute. Miles Partain, Andy Benish, the story of the tournament in my mind for the USA. You could talk about Chase Budinger and Miles Evans. Chase Budinger, the ex-NBA player, 6 seasons in the NBA. He's the biggest name, for sure. You can talk about TKN after sweeping pool play, drawing Canada, who lost twice in pool play in that 2-15 matchup. And TKN dropping to Mel and Brandie for their 2nd consecutive match, a rematch of the AVP Huntington Finals about 2 months ago. You can talk about TKN getting an absolute screw job of a draw there. The pool play, draw, reseed, just garbage draw there for them. They head home with the 9th, and they deserved much better than that. But you got to beat the teams that are in front of you. So you can talk about that being a story. You can talk about Kelly and Sarah making a deep run and taking a 5th, taking a solid 5th. I think the story for me of the 2024 Olympics from a USA perspective, Miles Partain, Andy Benish. They come into the tournament, and they draw Cuba in pool, they draw Morocco in pool, and they draw Brazil's first team, George and Andre in pool. Very difficult pool for Miles Partain and Andy Benish. They come out, and in that Cuba match, Noslin Diaz, Jorge Aleo, we'll get to them in a minute. Spectacular performance by them. Youngest team in the tournament, I just found out, too. You'll be seeing and hearing a lot more of those boys. I love those guys. Jorge Aleo just dominating at the net in this Olympics. Miles, Andy draw Cuba in that first match, and they lose. And I'm going to be honest with you, that's a match I expected them to lose. I'm not sure if I gambled it or not. I picked 65% for my picks on the tournament. We'll talk about that in a minute. Made a lot of money, so I hope you're following along, following the picks. I didn't expect them to beat that Cuban team. That's a Cuban team that has been on the rise, up, really just peaking at the right time. Miles and Andy, not so much. But we'll talk about that in a second. So they lose to Cuba. I think that's an understandable loss. You take that. Then they take on that Moroccan team, and I think it was the second set. They win that first set, and that second set goes deep. I think it's like a 28-26 second set victory for Miles and Andy, so they just barely escaped that match with Morocco. And they had not looked like the Miles and Andy of that month-long stretch in summer of 2023 when they got a medal of each color. They had regressed to a more traditional 3-touch offense. The jump setting had gone away. The option balls for Miles Partain had really dwindled. You hadn't seen them as much. And after that match with Morocco, they come out against Brazil's George and Andre, and Dane Blanton on the sidelines. They go to him after the first technical timeout or whatever, and Dane says, "I always go and talk to the coaches before my pregame hit or before my in-game hit. No Mike Playcheck, not here." And sources are telling me that Miles and Eddie have parted ways with their head coach Mike Playcheck, and Paul Lottman, the assistant coach, is expected to kind of step in and fill those head coaching duties. And back to you, Chris Marlowe. Back to you, Kevin Wong. Back to you, Misty May. And you can hear Chris Marlowe and Kevin Wong go, "Whoa, well, that's a big story." Kind of buried the lead there, did you, Dane? The great Travis Merwitter on Twitter saying, "Wow, what a carrot dangle there." He didn't have any sources telling him one or the other. They waited till the post game, and as I said, USA escapes with just a narrow victory over Morocco there. And Eddie says, "We're just looking forward to Brazil." And a couple days go by. They play Brazil. Brazil's George and Andre. I think they ended up getting the win there against George and Andre. but they looked different. They did get the win there, and they looked different. They fired their coach, and they came out in that. Sorry, there's 108 matches. They're all kind of going together in my head right now. They come out in that match, and they looked spectacular. They were back to that high-flying, jump-setting, option balls. Miles Partain is optioning balls from the 10-foot line, from the 12-foot line, from the 15-foot line. Sometimes inadvisable, too, I would say. And when you go to that, when we get to the match where we're headed right now in a minute against Qatar, but they looked different. They looked freed. And they win that match against George and Andre. They take second in their pool. And a couple days go by, and they have to release a statement, right? Everybody's asking them questions. They got to get something out there so you can just move on and start looking towards single elam. And the statement reads generic platitudes bull. You know, like, we thank Mike for his years of service, and we wish him best moving forward. We felt it was best for our team to part ways, and we're looking forward to our next match. Blah, 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 blah. Somebody with a PR degree wrote that, and Miles and Andy just rubber stamped it. So the USA team, our number one team, our best shot on the men's side at medaling in the 2024 Olympics, a team that had been together for 2 years now, a team, you know, not just the two players, but their coaching staff, the trainers and all that had been a unit now going on 18 months, has such a drastic philosophical difference 2 games into pool play in the Olympics that's the moment they decided to part ways. Just baffling. Absolutely baffling. And who knows what goes on behind closed doors, right? You got to figure that for you to make a move of that magnitude, there had to have been some sort of disagreement, you know, some sort of interaction that was not appreciated by the parties that were involved in it. Is the only way it's speculation, right? But like if you just had this like long-running like continual disagreement, you fire him before the Olympics or you wait till after the Olympics. Something has to come to a head there, and of course, you know, let Morocco take you to 28-26. You know, the country quota or continental qualifier from Africa, the 24th team in a 24-team pool in the African qualifying, Morocco. You know, that's a moment, but there's got to be something that happens behind closed doors after that. And if I was a fly on the wall, I would love to tell you exactly what happened there. I don't know what happened there. But something happened there, and it's big. And it's disappointing as a USA fan. This ended up being in 2024 the first Olympics since beach volleyball was added as an Olympic sport in 1996 in Atlanta that the USA did not medal on either the men's or the women's side. Now listen, you can't expect perfection, right? USA invented the sport. They dominated it for years, and then it was the USA and Brazil show for many, many years. And the sport has very much transitioned, right? Like Europe has now, on the men's side, really taken that mantle. You had an all-Europe podium with Norway, Germany, and Sweden. I should probably say it the correct way: Sweden, Germany, Norway. But all that said, it's disappointing for a sport in which we consider ourselves to be one of the world leaders to fall to a point where our best results are fifths and ninths. And when you look specifically at Miles Partain and Andy Benish, who knows what goes on behind closed doors? Do I like their offense the way it looks a little better with Miles Partain feeling a little more free with that option ball? I do. Do I like that jump setting offense, that high flying offense, the pull the blocker away from your swing? I do like that. All that said, you got to get your shit together. I mean, firing your coach in the middle of the Olympics is a terrible look. It makes it look like USA beach volleyball does not have their shit together, and that's really disappointing. It's disappointing for a USA fan that wants to see USA teams on that podium, that roots for our teams against the other teams, that really wants to see somebody there. You know, we've had many years of dominance. We had Phil Dahlhauser. We had Jake Gibb. We had Misty and Kerry. We had April and Kerry. We had April and Alex. You know, we've had these torch bearers. You know, you're not always going to have that. And I don't think anybody expected that going into these Olympics. You know, I think when we went into this, I said the best result you're going to get from Miles and Andy is maybe a third or a fourth. Get them into that semis. And I think a fifth was probably a little more realistic. That's what they ended up drawing as a fifth. On the women's side, we expected it was gold medal or bust for both of our teams. We'll get to that in a minute. Didn't quite get there for a variety of reasons. I think we can be a lot less disappointed with the women's side than we can with the men's side. Chase Buttinger and Miles Evans were a great story, but the fact that they're the ones who ended up qualifying shows you the lack of depth on the men's side from the Olympic, on the USA, beach volleyball program. And Mouse Partain and Andy Benish went out there and grabbed their spot, and they earned their spot. And then for them to go to the Olympics and fire their coach midway, and then in that, they beat Nikolai and Kodafava in the round of 16. That's a team they've played a lot, a team they looked very good against. Then they go out against that Qatar team, and again, just like I said about that first game with Cuba, Qatar's the better team than Miles Partain and Andy Benish. Qatar is a better team. So did I expect them to win that? No. Did I expect them to look better than they did? Yeah. They looked awful. If you go on Peacock right now and pull up Qatar USA round of 8, Miles Partain is optioning balls from like the 18-foot line without a chance. And I know that they're trying to stay true to their system, but very, very disappointing. And no reflection on the individuals. I like Andy Benish a lot. I like Miles Partain a lot. I think those are two very talented young players. If they stay together, they're going to be a very good team for a very long time. I just think the system that they built around them was flawed. And to fire your coach midway, maybe that was the right move, but you should have done it 6 months earlier. You should have done it 3 months earlier. You should have done it before you get to France. That's a terrible look for a program. These other programs are rigid. They've been together for years, and you see they get the results. And the USA's program is not there, especially on the men's side. We know on the women's side with the NCAA, Division I beach volleyball being a program, the women's side has never been stronger. And I think in 2028, you're really going to see the USA is going to have 4 or 5 teams hotly vying for those 2 spots in 2028 in Los Angeles. So the women's side, we'll get there in just a second. The women's side is strong. We had a tough draw. We had a couple of tough breaks here in Paris. But the women's side is strong. The men's side is struggling. And the next couple years, we really need to figure out how to get that program back together. So that's all I have to say about the men's side as far as the USA goes. Vandro and Arthur were spectacular. They ran into a machine that was Sweden. Qatar was spectacular all tournament long. They ran into the machine that was Sweden. Borbens and de Groot were great. I thought they could beat Niels Ehlers and Clemens Wickler, but Germany, a team that I love also, just played spectacular volleyball. All they did was just run into Sweden. So really, that's how it turned out. My picks are on the screen. I thought Norway was going to beat Sweden. Not so much. Sweden ends up taking first. Norway ends up taking third. Germany ends up taking second. Sweden dusts them in that second, in that gold medal match, and Sweden is it's Sweden's world right now. Combined age of 44. Both guys are 22 years old. You could see them for the next 4 Olympics, and I think if you're going to do your way too early odds to win gold in 2028, I think the Sweden, and we'll look at it in a minute here, was plus 110 to win this one. I'd put it same place, plus 150, plus 200 maybe for them to win gold 4 years from now in Los Angeles. That's the program that these two guys have put together. So that's that on the men's side. Let's take a look at the women's bracket here for a quick minute. Come on. Mouse is betraying me, guys. On the women's side, it's Brazil world and it's everybody else. Brazil Canada in that gold medal match. We're gonna go there just in a minute. AP versus Brandie in that gold medal match was just spectacular fireworks. Great for the sport. I wrote about it in the blog betthebeach.com this week. Just awesome. I don't even know what else you can say. I've already watched that gold medal match 3 times. That's how up and down and spectacular it was. And we'll talk about that in great detail here. As it relates to the USA specifically, TKN goes 3-0 in pool play, and they get rewarded by drawing Canada Mel and Brandie, who really struggled in pool play. I think they 1-2, ended up in a lucky loser, win that lucky loser, and they make it all the way to a gold medal match. And they get there by beating Taryn Cloth and Kristen Nuss. Spectacular match between the two. As I said earlier, a rematch of AVP Huntington Finals. The two teams know each other really well. They've played each other really well. Mel and Brandie were spectacular. Brandie was the best blocker in the tournament, I would say. Anna Patricia or Brandie, I think you got an argument for either one there, but Brandie was spectacular at 5'10 versus AP 6'4. I guess per inch or per meter, if you want to use the metric system, since we're out in France, Brandie, the best blocker for my money in the tournament, for sure. Mel was spectacular. Brandie was spectacular. Some of the best volleyball I've seen them put together after pool play. In pool play, they did not look good. After pool play, they look great. TKN draw them. TKN lose. You know, that's a toss-up for me between those two teams right now. I think they're both pretty evenly matched. Mel and Brandie have a little more experience at that level, both Mel and Brandie playing and taking fifths in the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo with different partners. Brandie with Heather Bansley at the time, and then, of course, Mel playing with Sarah Pavin, the Canadian great blocker there. So they had the experience. TKN did not. I think right now Mel and Brandie are a slightly better team than TKN is. TKN's got better results on the international tour. So they got some learning to do. It's a young team. Ninth is a very disappointing result for them. But when you look at the draw they got jobbed with that draw. To draw one of the top 4 teams in the world in the round of 16 it's just an unlucky draw. As far as Kelly and Sarah go, Kelly and Sarah get Italy's Ghitardi Menegatti in that first round match. They take care of business there. Then they draw Tanya Huberli and Nina Brunner in that second round match. Tanya Huberli and Nina Brunner, who would go on to take a bronze medal against Australia in that bronze medal match. And I sat here a few weeks ago giving my predictions. I'm going to show those to you in just a minute here, the gambling formula with the futures. And I was worried on the men's side that I hadn't covered my bases with Chechias, Peruzic, and Schweiner. That turned out to be a non-starter because Bormans and de Groot played Peruzic and Schweiner early on. Bormans and de Groot took care of business. My future protected. Once I started watching Nina Brunner play defense, I started getting worried about my formula. And then I see Switzerland take on Kelly Cheng and Sarah Hughes in that round of 8 match. And Nina Brunner, I've said it in my recaps, was an absolute magician. She is, in my mind, the third best defender. Boy, that is tough. You got Duda, Mel, and Kristen Nuss. Put her up there with Mel, I guess. Duda, Nuss, and then Nina Brunner. She's spectacular. And there was like a several game stretch there. I think the round of 8 match and then the semifinal match that they ended up losing to Mel and Brandie, and then the bronze medal match against Australia. If you go back and look how many mistakes she made in those 3 matches, you can count them on one hand. She was a tactician. She was digging balls. She was siding out. She's got a hard swing. She's hitting shots. She doesn't miss. She is spectacular. My eyes are open to how good of a player Nina Brunner is. And I now know moving forward I need to rate them higher than I've been rating them because she was spectacular. They deserved that bronze medal that they got. And boy, were they close to beating Mel and Brandie in that semifinal match. And I was very, very worried about that because I had the future on Brazil. I had a future on Mel and Brandie. I had already lost my futures on TKN. I already lost my future on Kelly and Sarah because of Nina Brunner. I thought Nina Brunner was going to cost me money, and she almost did. And she would have deserved it because she was absolutely friggin' spectacular. So all the credit in the world goes to Nina Brunner. You were spectacular. And they get the bronze. Switzerland gets on the podium. 2 years in a row, they take a bronze in 2020. That was Anouk and Mader for Switzerland, and then Tanya Uberli and Nina Brunner. Spectacular, taking that bronze over Australia's Clancy and Maria Fade, the defending silver medalists. In the gold medal match, AP and Duda versus Mel and Brandie. And as I said, go to Bet the Beach. Go to the blog. And I want to show you and tell you a story here. So, we get to the gold medal match, AP and Duda versus Mel and Brandie. Now, what's the criticism been on Brazil as a team in the last 18 months? Some head-scratching losses, right? We've talked ad nauseum about that Montreal 8-16 semifinal loss to Betsy Flint and Julia Scholes, where they were up like 12-4, 11-4, or something like that in that third set to 15. And they took a few like fifths and ninths recently. I think their last result was a ninth before going into the Olympics, and just head-scratching losses, right? And then you look at a player like Anna Patricia, who, as I said in the blog this week, a little bit of a tendency to quote play with her food, right? Like until she gets engaged, you don't know what you're going to get out of her. So we go into the gold medal match. Canada takes that early 7-2 lead, and you're like, wow, Canada might do this. Canada's playing spectacular. Duda and AP don't look that good. Brazil takes their timeout at 7-2. Canada serves Duda on that following play. Brandie blocks him 8-2. Brazil sides out. Brazil serves at Mel. AP digs it to make it 8-3. And then AP gets into it for the first time. You see her turn and yell to the audience. Great Brazil crowd there, by the way. And she's into it, right? She's into it for the first time. 14-17, Brazil still down, but like every couple of points, they're just getting one little break point, and that 8-2 lead is now 4 points. Now it's 2.5. Now it's 3.5 points. 14-17, AP gets a high line shot, gets dug by Mel. Mel goes high line. AP peels, passes the ball with her head. And you're thinking, wow, like we've seen AP do this before. You know, we know that she's Brazilian. The Brazilians play that sport where you can play volleyball with anything but your hands. Obviously, she's got great control with her head. We know that. But it's a less high percentage play than to take it with your hands, right? She's choosing to hit it off her head. She passes it to Duda. Not a great pass. Duda sets true. AP hits the hard angle line. Just barely clips Brandie's finger. And now we're within 15-17, 2.5 point lead. Big moment because if Brandie's finger hadn't touched the ball, we're talking about a 14-18 lead for Canada. And at that point, you think Canada can side out to victory pretty easily, right? 14-18, it might be close, but you should be able to side out to victory at 14-18. Instead, AP's head pass turns into an angle line shot kill, 15-17. 2 points later, it's 17-17. So now, side out, we're at 18-18. AP takes a Brandie serve. She serves it. AP passes it off her chest. High chest pass to Duda, forcing a difficult Duda bump set, by the way. Not a great pass by AP. AP swings deep seam, finds sand, sides out, 19-18 lead. Brazil's first lead of the match. And within about 5 points, AP's passed the ball with her head. She's serve received with her chest. And she's got her team a 19-18 lead. So these are two occasions where AP clearly has time to pass the ball with her hands, and she chooses to use her head and her chest, right? And as I said, a fair criticism of AP is her propensity to play with her food. And what I mean by play with her food, she's so good that she feels like she's got to play these things to get engaged, right? And let me say this, because if you just hear that clip, you might think that I'm criticizing that behavior, right? And it is important to stop here for a minute and let me give you a little bit of background here. I grew up in Massachusetts. I've been a Boston Celtics fan my whole life. I grew up when Larry Bird was just a little bit beyond his prime, but everybody in Boston was telling me that Larry Bird's the guy you got to watch, right? Larry Bird once, in 1986, played an entire basketball game with his left hand. Larry Bird is a righty, okay? Afterwards, they asked him about it, and he said, quote, "I'm saving my right hand for the Lakers." Celtics were going to play them 2 nights later. They ended up going on to beat the Lakers 2 nights later in overtime, right? That was regular. So they played the Lakers 2 nights later. Larry beats the Lakers 2 nights later. In that game against the Minnesota Timberwolves, in which Larry Bird played the entire game with his left hand, again, he's a righty, Larry finishes the game with 47 points, 14 rebounds, 11 assists, and an overtime victory. In Paris on Friday night, AP passing balls with her head in her chest. They take that first set 26-24. Here's my comparison. The greats sometimes need something to get themselves involved, right? And it is a risky move. I was going to say ballsy, but that would only apply to Larry Bird. I don't want to gender this at all. I think the move is risky, and to do that and to pull it off at that highest level and end up winning yourself that first set with it, it's a move. And it's borderline villain behavior, but we'll get there in a minute, right? So Brazil wins that first set. We go into the second set. And you got to think, right, so Canada had the big lead. They're disappointed with themselves. They lost a 6-point lead, and they lost that first set against the best team in the world. And also, they're aware of what AP has been doing here, getting the crowd into it, kind of messing around, doing stuff, and then ended up getting the win. So second set, it's tight for the first half of that second set, 10-10. Mel digs a doodle line shot, swings hard angle out of the middle. Her best swing of the match so far, crushes the ball. And then Mel celebrates, gives it that like, da-da-da-da-da, yeah! And the camera pans back to Duda after Mel's celebration, and Duda gives her one of the, just like a quick angry look. Didn't like the celebration, right? So this is, now we're advancing. Now we're kind of starting to move on here with a little bit of emotions. So this is the point where Canada takes over in the second set. They extend that lead to a 16-11 lead in that second set. AP again chooses to dig a ball with her head. This time it was a line shot, kind of swing shot from Brandie. Canada ends up winning this point. I think AP ends up hitting the ball out. Canada ends up winning that second set, 21-12, sends it to a third set. So now we have 2 attempted head passes, 1 attempted chest pass from AP. So now we go 10-6. So we get into that third set. Brazil gets that 2.5-point lead or so, 2.5, 3.5-point lead. And we get to 10-6 in that third set. Brandie goes back to serve, and she aces Brazil with that, like, short, just tailing, dying, get both players come in the middle, aces them both. And so Brandie's serve is that, like, the jump kind of run, step, right? Because she's already wants to be halfway to the net so she can get there to block. So she lands, sees the ace, and you get like a, yeah, out of Brandie, right? Instead of stopping and turning to Mel and yelling, yeah, or stopping and turning around like you see them yell, she gives it that extra, like, step towards Brazil, like that, yeah, right? Anna Patricia does not like that. Anna Patricia immediately stares back at Brandie. It's now 10-7, Brazil. And Kevin Wong, the great analyst, says, quote, Anna Patricia did not like that Brandie yelled in celebration at the end of that play. And you could tell Anna Patricia did not like that. So 10-7, right? Duda sides out. Anna Patricia is furious, still glaring at them. This time it's Chris Marlowe who picks up on it, says, quote, Anna Patricia is glaring at Brandie through the net, and she's telling the down ref, hey, shut her up. She's bugging me. Chris Marlowe, a legend, by the way. So now we get 2 points in a row, and you can see things are building, right? So now it is 11-7 Brazil. They serve at Mel. Mel's cross swing appears to go long, right? Anna Patricia was up on the block. We don't know immediately if AP got the touch on it or not. Brazil seems to think that there's no touch and it was an out and it was their point. Canada seems to think that maybe it was their point. Anna Patricia just continues to, like, bait them at the net. She's been at the net. This time Brandie takes the bait, right? Brandie steps to the net and gets into it, right? And so here, I'll show you. It's hard to show you clips because NBC does everything in their power to not let you share any of their content. But this is what goes down at the net at 11-7. Third set gold medal match between Brazil and Canada.
And look at this. Brandie and Anna Patricia going at it through the net. Look at this. You don't see as much in volleyball.
So that's it, right? So Canada's pissed at Brazil. Brazil's pissed at Canada. Both teams baited the other team a little bit, I would say. Canada was sick and tired of AP doing what she does. AP, Duda were a little upset with Canada's celebration, right? So you get that confrontation, and I am loving it, right? This is what makes sports great, And from an outsider's perspective, without knowing anything, without talking to any of these players, it doesn't seem like the players love Anna Patricia. Fiery competitor, not like the most smiley, friendly, jovial kind of person, which is totally fine. There's been plenty of greats over the history that have been total jerks. Michael Jordan, as an example for one of them. Larry Bird, I just talked about another one of them. These are great players that aren't the cuddliest of all time. Nothing wrong with that. Good for a sport, too, I'll say. So they kind of go back to line up. They kind of figure things out. It turns out that there was no touch, I don't think, on that one. Yeah, no touch on the swing. Brazil's lead extends to 4 points at 12-8. At that point, you got a 4-point lead on a race to 15. Brazil's going to side out to victory. They ultimately win 15-10. They take the gold medal, right? But in the moments right after that, they give Brandie a yellow card. The stadium DJ plays the Beatles' Imagine as like, why can't we all get along? Imagine there's no... and you get smiles out of Brandie. You get smiles and claps out of Mel. You even get a smile out of Duda. Which you can see sometimes. She's usually pretty stoic on the court. And the one person not having any fun in that moment is Anna Patricia. She is determined. She's pissed. She's not cuddly in that moment. She wants to win that match. So then after the match, you know how beach volleyball works. If you watch this show, you know how beach volleyball happens. At the end of the match, you go and you shake hands on the net. You go shake hands with the refs and you move on. If it's a huge match, it's a big emotional moment. Sometimes the players celebrate. Some they jump on each other, they hug, whatever. It's very common for the opposite team, the team that loses, to go shake hands with the refs first, give them their moment to celebrate, go sit on the bench. That's common. That's what happens in this situation. Brazil's celebrating, they win a gold medal. Canada goes to the net, give them a chance. They don't want to come over. That's fine. They go shake hands with the refs. They go back to their bench. Brazil, in due time, does the sportsmanship thing, shakes the hands with the refs, goes over to Canada's bench, gives them handshakes and hugs and all that, right? Did the right thing. Now, here's my question, and we'll never know. If Canada flip-flops that and ends up coming back and winning that match, do you think that Anna Patricia is as cuddly and warm to Brandie in that post-game celebration? Is as friendly with her on the podium in the moments after, on top of the podium, gold, silver? I'm willing to bet that Anna Patricia does not handle that as friendly as Brandie Wilkerson does. And again, I'm not throwing any shade here. That's because she's a competitor. So I say all that to say this. In my mind here, we have a villain. Brazil makes a good villain, but specifically Anna Patricia makes a villain because she's so damn good that she can pass 2 balls with her head, 1 ball with her chest in a gold medal match at the absolute highest pinnacle of the sport and get away with it and still win gold. That's Larry Bird playing with his left hand against the Trailblazers. That's Michael Jordan playing 36 holes of golf hungover and then scoring 40 points. That's what that is. That's somebody who's at the highest level of their sport and just kind of keeping themselves entertained. And she can get away with it because she's that good. So I think we got a villain on the women's side in beach volleyball, and I think that's good for the sport. And I say that with no disrespect, only respect for Anna Patricia and Duda, who went out and absolutely earned and deserved that gold medal. And it was fun as hell. You couldn't ask for anything more there. So let's look at I did forget one thing. I did just remember it, and there's one more team that I need to shout out before we move on from the Olympic talk specifically, and it is Cuba. I mentioned them a little bit earlier. Noslin Diaz and Jorge Aleo, I think like 21 and 23 years old. Didn't hear from them at all in the 2023 qualification window. They came in 2024 and just won medal in Brazil and in Mexico. They came onto the scene. They qualified via points. They were spectacular. They came into this tournament. They were spectacular in pool play. They got a tough draw in Sweden in that first round match, and they went home with the 9th. That's a team you're going to see again. That's a team that played amazing. That's a team that should be proud of what they did in Paris, and that's a team you're going to be seeing a lot more of over the next few years. So wanted to give Cuba the credit. As far as gambling goes, I hope you've been following along here, because here's what happened. I sat here on August. Let's see, where are we? I guess that would have been July 24th. So it was about 5 weeks ago, right before the Olympics started. They started on the 27th. And I gave you my gambling formula as far as futures goes. I picked 3 teams on the men's side: Sweden, Norway, and Netherlands, Bormans in the group. I picked 4 teams on the women's side: AP and Duda for Brazil, 2 USA teams, TK and Kelly Sarah, and I picked Canadians, Mel and Brandie. They were at plus 1,100, and I've told you time and time again that was a number that I loved at plus 1,100. They ended up in the gold medal match in a third set. How about that, huh? And then I gave you the formula. I said, I've done the math here, and I've allocated $100 on each gender so that as long as it's one of these teams that ends up on the top of the podium, we win our money. How did it turn out? Let's go back. The 2 gold medalist teams, one on the men's and one on the women's sides, is on this screen right now. These 7 teams, of these 7 teams, your gold medalists are in this list, both of them. Guarantee it, lock it, write that down. Old takes exposed. Check me on this. I'm going to be sitting here on August 10th and saying, I told you the 2 gold medal teams are on this list right here. So if that's the case, which it's going to be, then my worst case scenario is Brazil wins and I make $17. I get a 70% return on my investment. I walk away a happy man because I have more money in my account than I did when I started. My best case scenario is Kelly and Sarah to win the whole thing, and I end up with $25 more than I had, a 25% return on my investment over the 108 matches, over the 15 days. I've got to watch a lot of beach volleyball in the meantime. I'm a happy man. What have I done here? I got 7 bets. I got 4 women's teams that I've bet on. I got 3 men's teams that I bet on. And as long as the gold medalists come from those 7 teams, no matter what, I end up in the green. If Sweden wins, I net a measly $16. That's my worst case. Probably going to happen. But I'm covered. I'm not losing money. If Norway wins, give me that plus 210. Give me that. Let's go Norway. And then if Bormans and York to Groot win, $150 in the positive, 50 over my original investment. That's what we want to see win. The 2 gold medalists. 1 will stand atop the podium on August 9th, 2024 for the women. The other gold medalist on the men's side will stand atop the podium on August 10th, 2024. And those 2 teams will come from these 7 teams. Lock that up. So there you go. We picked it. Our 2 gold medalists, Brazil on the women's side, Sweden on the men's side. Now, you're going to sit there. I know what you're going to do. You're going to put your hindsight glasses on. You're going to say, well, Brazil was the favorite on the women's side. Sweden was the odds-on favorite on the men's side. I could have just bet the 2 of them, and I could have won a lot more money. Sure. Fair. I'll give you that. What I won't say to you is that Canada very easily could have won that match against Brazil, and Norway very easily could have beat Germany and given Sweden a run for the money in that gold medal match. What I did was I took $100 on the women's side and I turned it to 16% ROI on a future bet. I took $100 on the men's side and I won $17. 17 on the women's side, 16 on the men's side. 70% return on investment on the women's side, 16 on the men's side. I end up with $33 above what I started with. Add to the account, keep gambling with very little risk. And this was a strategy that worked, and it's a strategy that I will do again anytime a book's going to offer me futures for one of these kind of events. It worked. It worked. I mean, the biggest liability to my system was the fact that TK and Mel Brandie got paired up because of a crappy pool play by Canada. They got paired up in round 16, and I lost one of my teams right away. So that was my biggest liability there. Gambling formula worked. We win money. Now, Sweden top of the podium. As I said, Germany takes the silver. Mollenstrom take the bronze. For the women's side, AP, Duda take gold. Mel, Brandie take silver. Nina Brunner, the magician, Tanya Barley for Switzerland, take the bronze. How'd we do gambling as far as games go? Well, I was posting my bet slips every single night, so you can get a receipt for every single one of these if you go to my Twitter account. It's at @BetTheBeach, and then on Instagram, I was putting them on my stories for the most part. Can't go back and get those, so you'll see those stories posted on my Twitter account at @BetTheBeach. We placed 40 in-game bets over the course of the 108 matches over the course of the last 15 days of Olympic beach volleyball. We won 26 of those 40 bets. That's a win percentage of 65%. Interestingly, in the history of sports gambling on beach volleyball, I started back in March I am around 64.5% lifetime betting on beach volleyball. So the results from Paris were not an outlier. They actually ended up being exactly where I expect to be when I gamble on beach volleyball. And I know you can't do this, and this is kind of playing with the numbers and picking what you want, but I had one day where I went 1-5 of my 6 bets. It was an absolute bloodbath of the day. I owned it up. I talked about it on those reels that afternoon. Just a bloodbath of a day. Take that one day out, and I had a spectacular Olympics, but you can't take that one day out. That's part of the story. 65% on bets from Paris, right in line with what I've been doing throughout the course of my entire history of gambling on beach volleyball over the course of the last 5 or 6 months. I was a little worried that the Olympics were the bookmakers were gonna be better, and they were a little better. But I'm getting better too. So 65%, a number I'm very happy with. Unit size is still $10. We're going to keep it there until we get to $1,000. We started with 100. Once we get to 1,000, we're going to bump that unit size. Average odds minus 39. We were messing around with a lot of good plus number bets that helped with our ROI. In 40 bets at $10 a bet, we bet $400 in total. That's our total amount risked, our total amount wagered. We gained a total of $110.45 on that $400. We returned on investment 27.61% on that $400. We gained 11 units, $10 units, $110. We gained 11 units over the course of the 15 days. And as we just talked about, we gained $33 in total on our futures. That's an additional 3 units. We're up 14 units for the 2024 Paris Olympics. Pretty happy with that, I would say. I think we have to be kind of happy with how that turned out. Good gambling. Unfortunately, we can't gamble on AVP, but we do have some international events coming up on the calendar as well. So let's take a look at it. We are through the 2024 Olympics, so we're up into August now. We had Virginia Beach a week ago. Congratulations to Triborn and his new partner, Ryan Wilcox, for getting the W in Virginia Beach. It's funny seeing Triborn playing a contender event. Manhattan Beach is coming up this weekend. Next weekend is an Elite 16 in Hamburg. We'll be able to gamble on that. I will say this, gambling on international tour events for the next year and a half is going to be trickier because the teams are going to be different. The fields are going to be different. The Olympics are over. Sorry, I got some crazy bird action going on over here. So we're going to have to proceed with caution, I think, for a little bit. Now that the Olympic, quad window is over, the consistency is going to change. We had really ramped up to a point where we knew exactly how the teams were playing and exactly how well they played against each other. Now teams are going to change up. Now the goals are a little different, so we are going to have to watch that, and I do expect to have to adjust our approach for the next year and a half, 2 years, until we start getting into consistent teams again, until we start headed towards another quad. I think it's those 2 years before the Olympics that we're going to have the most success, and then we're going to have to be patient and be careful. So you might see me gambling a little bit less quantity, less number of bets, but we'll still win 65% of the bets that we hit. As I said, Hamburg, Germany's coming up the week after Manhattan Beach, and then we have the double weekend, Labor Day weekend. We got an Elite 16 in Montreal, Canada, and we have the Oak Street Beach, Chicago, Illinois, our favorite tournament of the year, AVP, the last Heritage Series. Before we start to turn our attention to the Hermosa Beach Open, which we'll talk about some more, and not an AVP event, just an open volleyball event put on by the Sandcast guys and Mark Palui over there, and the league starting the second week in September. So that's the schedule coming up over the next few weeks, and we turn our attention tomorrow morning to the AVP Manhattan Beach Open, the granddaddy of them all. What are the storylines going into this one? Well, you got your defending champions, Taylor Crabb and Taylor Sander. Taylor Crabb finally getting his name on the pier. The bug, long deserved. Him and Sander win it last year against Theo Brunner and Trevor Crabb. They will have the celebration and get their names on the plaque on the pier as we head towards the Manhattan Beach Open this upcoming weekend. So you got that storyline. Same with Betsy Flint. She gets her name on the pier finally with a win with Julia Scholes. I think they're playing Haley Harward in that finals match. Manhattan Beach was a little weird last year because we had the Olympic quad going on, so it wasn't a full lineup, a full draw. So those are your defending champions. We have all the USA teams back in action. TKN are at the top of the list for the women. Kelly Cheng and Sarah Hughes there for the women. Miles Partain, Andy Benish for the men. Chase Budinger and Miles Evans for the men. All the Olympic teams are back in the mix. We really don't have any teams that are sitting out, with the exception of a Mel and Brandie, which is not a surprise at all. Mel and Brandie win the silver medal. A whirlwind for them, I'm sure. Head back to Canada. I'm sure they have all sorts of promotional opportunities and talk shows to go on with the defending silver medalists. Plus, the biggest part of it is they already won the Huntington Beach Open, so they've already qualified for the league. So they don't even need to play in Manhattan Beach. And I wasn't expecting them to play in Chicago because it's the same weekend as Montreal, and that's the Elite 16 they won last year. So I don't think you'll see Mel and Brandie until the week 1 of the AVP League. And if you don't see them in Manhattan Beach, I wouldn't expect to see them in Chicago either. So that's the one AVP team that you would typically see on a deep field like this that you're not going to see. Better for all the rest of the teams, especially on that women's side, or I guess only on the women's side. That goes without saying there. So yeah, your odds to win, I get TKN slightly above Kelly Cheng and Sarah Hughes. I think both those teams are going to be motivated, for lack of a better term, coming off a 9th and a 5th in the Olympics. A disappointing result, I would say, for both of them, not from my perspective, but probably from theirs. Betsy Flint, Julia Scholes, well rested at plus 500. They've been a spectacular team over the last few years. I think they have a very good chance to win this. And then you kind of go down a little bit. Megan Kraft and Therese Canada have been playing great. You know how I feel about Haley Harwood. I think she's one of the best defenders in the USA, playing with Kylie DeBerg there at plus 800. Savvy Semo, Abby Van Winkle, been playing good volleyball as well. April Ross and Alex Kleiman, the A team, dropped them down a little bit on the list just because of what we saw out of them in Huntington. They look good at times, but I think conditioning was a little bit of an issue there. Of course, they're coming off the birth of their first kid, both of them, and they haven't been playing at the competitive level that the rest of these teams have, so you think you got to bump them down there to plus 1,200. Gina and Tony at plus 2,000. Lexi and Deanna at plus 3,000. And then the new kids, I'm a big fan of them. Whitmarsh and Newbury at plus 5,000. On the men's side, I think Miles Partain and Andy Benish are a pretty good shot to win. They're the best odds of anybody I have on this list. Trevor Crabb and Theo Brunner, motivated as anybody right now after missing the Olympics. I think you're going to see a motivated Trevor Crabb. Here's another storyline for you. Trevor Crabb has got his name on the pier now 3 times. Twice with Triborn and once with Reed Pretty the year before. So Trevor Crabb going for 4 times on the pier. You'll see a motivated Trevor Crabb here coming up in a couple of days. Taylor and Taylor are on the list. The thing about Taylor and Taylor is they have not been playing at the competitive level, as have the 4 teams immediately around them in the standings, and that includes Chase Budinger and Miles Evans. They are less motivated to win because they won last year and because they already had that automatic bid into the league with their win in Huntington about a month and a half ago. So Taylor and Taylor at plus 500. I got Chase Budinger and Miles Evans at plus 600. I like them to have put in a good performance here, maybe make a semifinal. I'm just worried with them a little bit about fatigue. You know, this last 18 months has been a brutal nonstop journey for them. They get to Paris. They end up pulling that 9th in Paris. They just get home, and they immediately have to get back out in the sand of Manhattan Beach. I think it's a tall order for them to win the Manhattan Beach Open. But another storyline there for you. Miles Evans has yet to win an AVP event at the highest level. So could it be his first? Could he get his name on the pier? He'd certainly shut up some of the haters. I'm looking at you, Trevor Crabb. Evan Corey and Alisson have been playing spectacular volleyball. I like them at plus 1,000. That's pretty good value. Ryan Wilcox and Triborn coming off that contender level event win in Virginia Beach at plus 1,500. Avery Drost, Phil Dahlhauser, 1,500. Cody Caldwell and Sean Cook at plus 1,800. Logan Weber and Hagen Smith at plus 2,500 coming off a big win at Seaside last weekend. Congratulations, boys. They beat my guy, Jake Uritia. And I don't know who he was playing with. I wonder if he's playing with David Lee. He's playing with David Lee in Manhattan. I think they might have been playing with them also in Seaside. That looks like a fun tournament. Bet the Beach is going to get out there eventually for that one. But congratulations to Logan and Hagen for taking a gold at Seaside. And at the bottom of the list there, you get Kim Schock. And I don't even know Shaw's first name yet. I got to learn that. Shaw and Hoppy. I knew that they were the young up-and-comers. Schock took one of them, and now they're at plus 3,000. Quali starting tomorrow, deep field. The brackets are posted but not yet filled in. We're still waiting for the bottom half to come through the qualies, so we'll get the brackets up for you, and we'll get them posted come tomorrow night on our Instagram page. And finally, I need to give a shout out to commenter Mr. Brian. I hope I'm getting your last name right here. Stomford. Brian Stomford. So if you watch these YouTubes, I love you. I appreciate you. My following on YouTube is limited. As you see on this from August 7th, 4 views on this one. I'm not doing this for the money, people. I'm doing this for the pride, the passion, the enjoyment of broadcasting. I enjoy doing these things. And plus, it gives me some content to cut up and dispatch to my shorter attention span viewers on TikTok and on Instagram and all that. And I like doing it. But this Mr. Brian Stomford commented twice. I think my first comments on the YouTube, or first in a while anyways. 4 views in this video, August 7th. He says, great inside and pics. Shame nobody sees these. I saw that the other night. I got a notification and I pulled it up and I laughed my ass off. I love you, Mr. Brian Stomford, for watching. I love you for commenting. And I just want everybody to know out there that every viewer counts, every listener counts, every commenter counts, every like, every subscribe. Great insight and pics. Shame nobody sees these. I'm right there with you, Mr. Brian Stomford. You're my guy. I absolutely love it. I absolutely love you. Keep commenting. Give me that like. Give me that subscribe. I'm doing this for the fans. I'm doing this to have some fun. And that's it. I think we're going to end the show with that. That's a long episode of Bet the Beach Live tonight. We had a lot to talk about with the Olympics, with Manhattan Beach coming up. But I thought it was a good opportunity to sit and chill and talk a little bit of Olympics. Finally, wrap that up, tie a knot on it, tie a bow on that, and put it away for a couple of years, and we can turn our attention here slowly to the AVP, Manhattan Beach, the granddaddy of them all, coming up over the next few days. Look for brackets and picks and all kinds of stuff from us over the next few days. And then we got Hamburg next week. Maybe get a little gambling in on that. And then we got Montreal the following week, and we got Chicago. And Hermosa in the league starting soon. So, again, I appreciate you. I love you guys. Give me a like, give me a subscribe. All those viewers, every one of the 4 of you, I appreciate you, and we'll see you next week.